Slaughter the badass bitch. Welcome to the Slaughterhouse. I'm Kelly Slaughter, aka Slaughter. I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Sergeant Slaughter.
As you were.
Also known as my dad.
My dad. Hey,
Just
you.
my dad.
Hey, you.
Hey, you. Hey, Herb.
Hey, Herb.
Hey, Herb. So, Dad, thanks for joining me tonight.
I'm so happy to be on your first broadcast. And I know it's going to be a very successful podcast because there's a lot of people that want to know a lot about you and me and what's going on in our worlds and in the wrestling business and the animated G.I. Joe business, the action force, all the things that we're doing. I'm just back from starting a movie. I had to leave because they ran out of time and I'm double booked. So we're going to go back in April. And
where were you?
I was in Baltimore.
Can you share the name of the movie?
The name of the movie is called The Realtor.
Mm.
And I don't want to give too much away, but there's a real estate agent who's a wrestling fan. And he wants to become a professional wrestler, and he meets a lady and her daughter, and through an Uber driver friend of his, and she's a seamstress, and gives him a card because she finds out that he's wanted to be a wrestler. She said, "Well, here's my card if you want to get an outfit made." So
right.
It's a kind of a tongue-in-cheek comedy wrestling movie that has a lot of pretty rough language in it. So I don't know if I'll even let you watch it.
Oh, please.
Me watch it. But I was given the lines, and that's what I was getting paid to do. So it's called The Realtor, and it ends up I play a character called the Coach, and it's kind of based on Sergeant Slaughter, but he's called the Coach. He's a kind of a retired wrestler that was too tough to wrestle in the United States, so he had to wrestle overseas because he was too mean and rough. And so this real estate guy ends up coming down to his daughter's house and finds me there, and I'm kind of like the Uber driver friend who becomes the like a manager for this wrestler, real estate agent. His name is Maurice, but I call him Shed. And
Shed.
I nicknamed him Shed, and he calls me Batman because I always show up unexpectedly, and you never know when I'm going to be there. So we kind of traded nicknames in the movie. So it's going to be a fun movie to watch, and just got to beware of the language and some of the content. But I have to go back there and do some work in Baltimore in April.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I don't want to give too much away, but
yeah. Well, don't.
It's fun. It's fun. It's fun so far. I mean, I know now why I never went into the movie business too much because it's a lot of hurry up and wait, like the military, you know.
Yeah.
So it gets to be, one day on Wednesday, I sat in my trailer all day, never did anything.
Yeah.
But I had to be there on set at 7 a.m.
So you just have to sit there and wait until they're ready.
700. And then they come in and say, well, I think we're ready to do you. And then they come back, well, we're going to do something else first. and then they come back in and you want to have lunch? Yeah, go have lunch. And, next thing it's 10 o'clock at night. It's a wrap. See ya.
Bye.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for the free meal.
But that's what they paid for. So my agent was a little bit rough. Paulie Inserto, he went up a couple of times to the writer and said, what's going on? We're sitting in the trailer all day long. And I said, Paul, you can't do that. You can't go to the writers and the producers and start yelling. That's like yelling at Vince McMahon. I mean, they pay you to be on set. When you go to a WWE show, taping, especially TV, you're there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're there till midnight. And sometimes you don't even get on camera, but you got to be there in case they want to put you on camera. So I had to explain that to them, that hooray for Hollywood. Da, 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 da. So that's kind of why I basically didn't dive into it more. I was probably one of the first wrestlers that got into the movies. But look what they're doing with The Rock and Dwayne Johnson, of course, and John Cena. And a lot of the talents are in movies and commercials these days, but I prefer to stick to the animated movies and commercials.
Voiceovers.
Things like that.
But you can do that from home.
A little easier.
Do you do it from home ever?
You can do it from home. You can do it in your car if you need to. I mean, it's just, but you're in a booth all by yourself, and
you don't have to be around all these other people that make you sit around and wait.
Right. Don't have to wait for somebody else to feed you their line, and then you mess up or they mess up, and you have to do it again. Yeah. So in an animated type, like the G.I. Joe, the movie, and of course, Teen Titans Go, and a lot of the things that I've done, and Camp WWE, we were all by ourselves in a room, so we would just read the lines. And once they were happy with the way, you'd say it one way, and then you'd say it another way, and then they just all edit it all to whoever's in the scene with you. You don't have to be in the same room with them. So it works out great. Yeah,
that does make it nice, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what are some of these pictures that you have here?
Oh, I have so many pictures, unbelievable. I just thought it'd be kind of fun to show one of my first characters. That's me in Blaine, Washington, when I was wrestling for the Vancouver company up in Vancouver, Canada. And my nickname in high school was Remo. My last name's Remus, of course. Right. And so for short,
my nickname was Remo.
Your nickname is Remo. Yes. So I had shirts made up called Remo. And that was kind of the first look of Beautiful Bobby. That was the first look of Beautiful Bobby. And my first character was kind of based on two of my wrestlers that I really enjoyed watching. One was called, the guy's name was called the Crusher Lazowski from Milwaukee, the wrestler that made Milwaukee famous. He got that growly voice out of the side of his mouth, kind of like that. And then there was superstar Billy Graham, who was blonde, long blonde hair, and had all the muscles and wore the tie-dye and all different types of colors, boots, and wore different hats. And so that became Beautiful Bobby. So that's how that's where I first started into the professional wrestling business, and went well for a little while.
A little while.
A little while.
It's been how many years?
Let's see, it's going 50. Let's see, I started my first match 1973, so almost 50 years now.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Long time.
It's a long time to be in a business, really. That was way before I was born. Yeah. I don't know a time that you didn't wrestle.
Yeah.
I've always known you've always been a celebrity, a wrestler, and G.I. Joe, and all of that. So when people ask me what it was like to have you as a dad, I'm like, he was just my dad.
Yeah, what was that like for you? Did you enjoy your dad being a celebrity, so-called wrestler, entertainer? Did it make you happy, sad? make you feel kind of like a celebrity yourself, or were
Well,
you teased or bullied? Or?
Yes, I felt all the emotions.
Yeah.
All of them. Like I said, I didn't know a time when you weren't a wrestler. So,
right.
I mean, there was a time where you guys didn't tell us
right.
what you did. So there was a time that I didn't know what you did. But once I found out what you did, I was like, my dad's Sergeant Slaughter. He's the coolest dad in the whole world. My dad's cooler than your dad. He's awesome. Like, I just loved it. I loved being your daughter. I still love being your daughter. But I loved it, and I was very proud to be your daughter and who you were. You were just the strongest. I think everybody thinks that about their parents or about their father. If you know that they're the best, they're the smartest dad in the whole world, they're the biggest dad in the whole world, they're the, I remember fighting with Lizzie, and who I've known since we were 2.5, and fighting with her over whose dad was stronger. And I just knew for sure that you had to be stronger than anyone because you were Sergeant Slaughter.
Right.
But
did you know what Sergeant Slaughter was? That he was a military character?
I don't think I really knew.
It mattered.
You were just the big guy on TV that was beating up everybody.
Yeah.
And I remember, back then and even still now, with what we're going through, but it was Russia was the bad guys, and then Iron Sheik was the bad guy. So, so it was like you represented USA
Americana.
America, and you were fighting against Russia. You were fighting against Iraq or Iran. Where was
Iran.
Sheik from?
Iran.
Iran. So I used to work for a Persian man.
Yeah.
He was very nice and kind, and I learned a lot about their culture, and it was very interesting. And you know what I learned? He didn't really know who you were, but he knew who Iron Sheik was.
Right.
Because he said, Sheik. He said he was a Sheik, and we don't have Sheiks in Iran. And that was all he said about it.
Right.
But
he was actually a kind of a hero in his younger days.
Yeah.
Khosrow Vasari is his real name, and he was a Olympic. I think he was a silver medalist, and a bronze in wrestling in the Olympics.
Oh, I did not know that about him.
He was a bodyguard for the Shah of Iran, and so he had to be pretty tough in order to get that job.
Absolutely.
And to do what he did. Their training facilities weren't anything like we have in the United States. That's why he created I don't know, a lot of people have ever seen it. Maybe we can put, if we have some footage of him or some pictures of his clubs. Clubs.
Where he was going like this with them.
And they were both like 70, 80 pounds. Each one was
amazing.
That heavy.
And they're long.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're really unbalanced type things.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a small, like a baseball handle, and then all this weight, and he would pick them up and twirl them, and I only saw one person ever do it, and that was Bob Backlund.
Mm-hmm.
But Bob trained and trained and trained
to be able to do it.
To be able to just do it a couple of times.
Wow.
But the Iron Sheik would challenge anybody, and they had bodybuilders, they had football players. Even Andre the Giant couldn't do it. I mean, that's how
hard it was.
So,
wow.
That's what he used to train with. He'd get some cinder blocks and put a pole between them and lift them. That's how they trained. They didn't have all what we had. So, hats off to him and all those that don't have those facilities to become champions like he was. But then he had to escape, of course, when Ayatollah took over. And escaped because he worked for the Shah, and everybody that worked for the Shah was to be killed. So he escaped and came over to the United States. And they're, you know, I don't think they look for him anymore. I mean, they know who he is and how to get a hold of him. But once he escaped, got to the United States, he kind of had asylum, I guess is what they call it, where he was more protected. And but he didn't know the language. He didn't know how to speak too much English and write it, you know. And you can imagine driving down or just getting a car and trying to make your way.
Navigate.
He was all by himself.
Oh man.
He wasn't with his family, or he wasn't old enough at that time yet to have met anybody to get married and have children. But you know, he got through it. He just, you know, be like if we went over to Iran and got a car and had to figure out where we're going and how much this was and how much is that.
I would not survive.
Yeah.
I would definitely be kidnapped or something if I had to do that, because you can't understand. It's not even in our alphabet.
Right.
It's a beautiful, though their writing.
Oh, and they have such beautiful artistic things in Iran. You know, their Persian rugs. Pistachios come from Iran. Some of the best pistachios you can eat are from Iran.
I love pistachios. You love pistachios.
Oh, I love them. And the Iron Sheik used to give me, you know,
pistachios.
Bags and bags of them that he got from his home. You know, once he got established here, and that they sent over to him. Always had pistachios. We weren't on the wrong side of the street all the time. You know, I was wrestling as a villain, and so was he. So we never wrestled each other. We just kind of traveled together, got to know each other, because he ended up in Minnesota, where, you know, I grew up and you grew up, and he loved Minnesota, and that's where he met his girlfriend and his wife to be, Carol. The reason I know a lot about this, and I'm kind of fresh on this, because we're doing a A&E special biography on.
I was going to say, you know a whole lot about Iron Sheik, man. You must have been really good friends.
Yeah. A&E came to the home barracks, you know, and brought their film crew, and they were there for like 6 hours.
They came to your house?
Yeah. They came.
Did you film outside by your beautiful fountain?
You know, it's funny. I spent all day and all night for 2 days getting it all cleaned up. Yeah. And it started to rain. And when they showed up, it just quit raining and the sun was coming out.
Oh, nice.
And I said, someone was looking out after me.
Yes.
So they came in, the first couple guys that were the camera crew, to see where would be a good spot. And they were looking around in my house, and I said, you know, you can do here or do there, but if you want to do against this one wall, you can't take the Buddha plaques down, because my daughter wanted those up, and I'm not moving them because they're just precision. They're in there just perfect. So they said, no, we won't have to move those. In fact, we like them.
They're gorgeous.
So I grabbed them, took them out back, and I was so proud. I said, how about over there where the koi pond is? And we can stay up here on the deck, so it's not too noisy.
Right, and have it be in the background.
Went, that's beautiful, but, you know, we're a little bit afraid of the weather. And I said, no, it's not supposed to rain. I already checked the Weather Channel and my phone, and they said, well, we better not take a chance. You know.
It's expensive equipment.
Yeah. So I just, I could hardly even walk. I was like moving all that stuff around. Had it all I took all the cushions out, had the candles out there, and I had it all looking pretty nice, pretty sharp. And they loved it. I mean, when the producer came, and the director, they said, that's just gorgeous. We'd love to do it there, but, you know, weather. I said, what's with the weather? It's not supposed to rain. Anyway, So that's why I'm fresh. That's why it's fresh.
That's why you know so much about Sheik.
I'm not sure when it's going to air, but it's a biography on the Iron Sheik. And when we started, filming it, I was very cautious not to say the wrong things because I know Cosgrove a long time, as I was just talking about. And, he went through
didn't he used to babysit Nicole?
No, but he used to come over when she was about 2 years old to our apartment in Kansas City, and would always come like an hour earlier than he's supposed to, so that he could play with her. Aww. And he would put her on his knee and read her book, and she would look at different animals and things in the book, and he would always say, "Nikki, bird, bird," and she'd say, "Bird, bird." And I thought, oh, she's going to think birds are bird, bird. Bird, bird. So, but we got a fun, we had a lot of fun with it. And of course, so whenever he would come over, your mom, Diane, always had lunch ready for us before we left, so we wouldn't have to stop. And when we would get back, she'd always either get up or have something ready for us to eat. So years later, when Cosgrove got married to Carol, and the four of us got together, and they told us that the second baby they're going to call her Nikki, after our daughter Nikki, your sister. And Carol said, and by the way, Bob and Diane, you have really spoiled my husband, because before he goes anywhere, he has to have something to eat, a nice meal. And when he comes home, no matter what time it is, I have to get up and make him dinner.
Nice.
He said, that's the way they do it in the United States. That's how they do it. And so that was kind of a fun thing to hear her say that.
Yeah. So I interrupted you. You were saying it was like more serious with what Sheik has been through.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, he had a lot of problems with alcohol and drugs and the real bad drugs, the cocaine, the heavy and the crack. Stuff. And so I'm very cautious on the A&E broadcast that I don't say the wrong thing.
But you just said it here.
Yeah. And so they told me, it's no holds barred. He's he wrote a book and told everybody.
Oh, so he's open about all of his.
So I said, you mean we can say anything we want to talk about? Anything? Yeah, that's what we're here for. We want the dirt. We want the stories that nobody knows about. So I told a few stories. So hopefully they make the show. But, I was really not sure if I should tell them, because some of them were pretty rough. Then not only his behavior, but the way he treated me a few times. He came after me with a knife one time. He was so messed up.
Wow.
And he misunderstood me, because we had a match and he was kind of in another world. I don't know what he was on that night. We were over in the UK, and he kept letting me go. He'd have me in a hole, and there were some people from the WWE in the audience that were from The Office, and they were having a great time laughing. And he would get up and go over and lean over the top rope and yell at them and say all these obscenities. I mean, this is horrible. And then he'd come back to me, and finally I told the referee, tell him to get his butt back over here and forget about those people. Let's get this thing going, because every time he would stop, we'd have to start over. He'd get some heat up on me, and then I'd have to, back to let him get the heat on me. But,
right.
So anyway, after the match was over, I went into my locker room, and it took him a while to come by, and I started taking my clothes off to shower, and he walked by the door, and he stopped, and he said, Sergeant, everything okay with match? And I said, no. And he went, what? What do you mean? I said, no. I said, you say Iron Sheik is the shits. Can I say that on here?
Yeah.
Okay, I just did. So anyway, that's what he said to me. And I said, no. I didn't say you were the shits. I said the match was the shits. And he goes, you say the Iron Sheik is the shits, huh? I said, no, I didn't say anything. We're all kind of like laughing in the locker room.
Right.
Because he misunderstood me.
Right.
And so finally he got up, got mad, and left. And so now I'm down to my birthday suit, getting ready to go in the shower. I got a towel in my hand. And here he comes again. Now he's got a towel in his hand. And I go to get up to go in the shower, and he goes, hey, Sergeant, one more time. You said this Iron Sheik is the shits? And I said, Cuz, I didn't say you were the shits. I said the match was the shits. The Iron Sheik is the shits, huh? And he unwrapped his towel. It had a knife about that long.
Jeez.
And he said, I cut you from ear to ear.
Oh, shit.
You jabroni mother. I won't say the word. Yeah. I went, whoa. Now he's getting a little serious here.
He's getting serious?
Getting serious. And the laughter kind of went out of the locker
Silent.
room.
There was crickets.
So as I said, I was standing there, and all of a sudden I feel this horrible pain in my left foot. And I'm looking at that knife, and I've got a towel, and I'm thinking, I'm in for a battle here. And I looked down, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan slid his 2x4 over to me on the floor. And he was across the room. So
it hit your foot.
Every time it hit my foot, it was like, it was a weapon.
Right.
And I went, ah! And so I looked down, and looking at the knife, I'm looking down, and I reached down, and I got the 2x4. I said, okay, you son of a bitch, let's go. And he said, I kill you. I split your throat. So we were like nose to nose. And finally, he went to turn around, and I said, hey, you son of a bitch, don't you ever pull a knife on me unless you're going to use it. And so he said some words, and I threw the 2x4 at him, just missed his head. And so that night when we were in the bus, we used to have the villain bus and the hero bus. Mm-hmm. And he walks by the hero bus, and he goes, Slaughter, Sergeant Slaughter, I kill you. And that went on the whole tour. But we never wrestled each other again for, till the last night of the tour.
Oh, God.
So everybody was thinking, oh, man, we're going to see this. So the last night of the tour, it's he and I in a battle. And we had one of the best matches we probably ever had.
Really?
And later on, he came over to me. He got down on his hands and knees, and he kissed my hand. He goes, Sergeant, I am so sorry. I was messed up. Someone give me pills and make me crazy. And I said, it's okay, cuz, okay. You're my friend. Don't worry about it. You don't have to apologize. I know something was wrong. I knew something was wrong.
Right.
So anyway, I don't want to give too much away from the A&E show, but there's a lot of stories in there,
Man.
Fun times. But yeah, he you think about how he came over, and then of course his first daughter was murdered by her boyfriend.
Yeah, that's awful.
It was horrible. And he called me up weeping and crying. It wasn't a fun situation to try to tell him.
Horrible.
He wasn't at home. He was on the road.
Right.
And I was in a hotel room in the same place. And he was telling me about it. He was going to go home and kill him. And I said, no, you can't do that. You can't go do that. You'll be in jail.
Right.
Let the
authorities.
Let the authorities handle it. I know it's a horrible thing. You just gotta keep your head on your shoulders. Don't get nuts about it. At that time in his life, he was nuts anyway, with all the things that were going through his body.
Right.
But it was just not a good time. And, but every time I see him at a signing, it's fun because we're usually next to each other because they want people to come to both of us and get a autograph for both of us at the same time.
Right.
We have some action figures that we're together in, and a lot of photos of us together. So they want to get both autographs. And every time I look over at it, he's concentrating so much and to sign it, and I go, Cosro, yes, Sergeant. Bud. Bud. And he always laughs. Bud. Bud.
Oh, that's sweet.
Fun.
So, what is this picture, Dad?
That was one of my first beautiful Bobby pictures. That's I was saying was the tie-dyed materials, the long blonde hair, and a lady in Vancouver, Canada, that your mother and I met, knitted. She knitted, and I needed some like hats, so I wanted this beret look, like Superstar Billy Graham would do, and of course I couldn't find any that fit me for one. So she started knitting me all these different colored, as you can see in that picture. That one's kind of a lime green, purple, red, yellow. And I just told her to make them all solid colors. And she had a little bill on them, so I knew which was the front, which was the back. And I would tilt it, as you can see. And I just started.
You got a purple outfit.
I tie-dyed my own shirts. Where we lived in Blaine, Washington, I'd get a shirt, white shirt, and I would put rubber bands around it and put it in different types of dyes and wait for it to dry, and then I'd open it up and voila, had some really cool shirts for a long time, different colors, and that was the beautiful Bobby look. Then I started, ordering shirts like I had the Playboy bunny emblem on my shirts, and because I always wore red, white, and blue anyway. Some of my outfits as beautiful Bobby were red, white, and blue. Not even thinking about being the one day being the real American hero or the hero of the United States fighting the Iron Sheik from Iran and all those things. But that ended up being more of a military look than beautiful Bobby. So, but beautiful Bobby went for a while, and then one night in the ring, the incident happened that I was when I was trained by Vern Gagne, he always said, when you're the hero, you stand in the corner and sign the autographs. Back then, they used to let fans come up and get your autograph before the match started.
Oh,
so
nice.
It had kind of a little break, and so my coach always said, always have your back to your opponent, and when they announce your name, you turn around and throw your hand up. So when they say Bob Remus or beautiful Bobby Remus, you turn around and you acknowledge the crowd, and they cheer because they know you're the hero. And so this one night in Vancouver, Canada, I'm waiting for them to announce me, and I look down at the announcer, and he's kind of like chuckling to himself, and I see the fans are kind of having a laugh, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I turn around and kind of look over my shoulder, and my opponent, whose name was Buck Ramstead, he was from Minnesota, real burly, lumberjack-looking guy, and what most guys from Minnesota look like, hard-ass, tough guys, and he's standing in the middle of the ring blowing me kisses, and I went, you can't imagine, I got long blonde hair, I got tie-dyed shirt on, purple tie-dyed shirt on, I got pink tights and, yellow boots, and, I looked the part that he thought it was, and I kept, as soon as I saw the kiss, I went, oh, no, that's not the image I created the beautiful Bobby for.
Right.
And so poor Bob, Buck Ramstead got beat up pretty bad that night. And so I didn't even shower. I got my stuff and I drove home, and your mother I walked in, she says, "What's wrong with you?" And I told her what happened. And she goes, "Oh, no, you don't want that image. You don't want that image." I said, "I don't want that image." But, it was my first year in the business and didn't know, what all that meant. And I didn't even know what it meant, to tell you the truth, And I just knew I didn't want that image of having kisses blown at me. So I continued after I told your mother, I was getting kisses blown at me. She said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'll take care of it." So 2 days later, I went to the barber shop and it cut all my hair off, pretty short, and went right through the doorway of the barber shop into the beauty shop, and she put my hair back to its normal color. And there's a picture of it. That's what I look like as Bruiser Bob.
Bruiser Bob. So you went from Beautiful Bobby to Bruiser
Beautiful
Bob.
Bobby to Bruiser Bob. Yeah. So good looking guy, I might add.
Yes.
A lot of my pictures, I actually started the Sarge.
Young lad.
Didn't even know the Sarge existed at that point. So it's funny how that happens.
I will say one of my favorite pictures of you from before you were Sarge is probably the Mighty Mouse.
The Mighty Mouse, yeah.
Where you're flexing. That must be where I get it from.
Right.
Must be where I get it from.
Yeah.
But that is probably one of my favorite pictures of you from
back
before you were Sarge.
Back then we could go to these t-shirt shops and they had all these decals you could put on shirts. And so I said, "Oh, there's a small Mighty Mouse." So I put him on my front of my shirt, and then on my muscles, I put the small Mighty Mouse on there. So I still get comments. In fact, last week I got a comment, and someone had sent me the picture, and they always say, "Here's Sergeant Slaughter, is Beautiful Bobby, and what's with the Mighty Mouse?" And I said, "Here I come to save the day. Looks like a Mighty Mouse is on the way." It's a cartoon I watched when I was a little boy.
I watched it. I loved Mighty Mouse.
I liked Mighty Mouse.
I used to watch Mighty Mouse all the time.
Yeah, he was kind of my hero, kind of the American mouse hero. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. So, Dad, I've heard you say before, I've actually heard you say it many times, that you were born to be a wrestler. So, explain what you mean by that.
Well, to go back a little bit, when I was about 14 years old, my parents and I, Florence and Rudy, Sonny and Rudy, my mother's name was Sonny because she was always smiling, and my dad, Rudy Kazuti, and we went to a family reunion. And when we got home, I said, "Mom, I have a question for you." She said, "Sure, what is it?" And I said, "How come I'm so much bigger than everybody else?" That, my cousins and my, uncles and my grandfather. My grandfather was the next biggest. Her dad, William, was the next biggest to me, and he was small. He was like maybe 5'10", 11. That's not small, but next to me, he was small. So I said, "Why am I so much bigger?" She said, "Well, I have a theory on that." She said, "When you were a little baby and I put you to bed, you would kind of wake up and I would take you and put you in a high chair and I would start feeding you apples and different fruits and Cheerios and put a bowl of Wheaties in front of you, and you didn't want any of it. You kept pushing it away. Sometimes you'd take a bite of some raisins and things like that, but she said you just didn't want anything to do with anything. She said, "I know what was wrong with you. You were hungry, but you weren't eating." So then finally, after about 5 minutes, she said she put the bowl of Wheaties back in front of me and put a scoop of it in my mouth, and I went, she said, my eyes got like saucers, and I got this big smile on my face. And she said, Oh, he likes Wheaties, but he's got to have a mushy. He wants some mushy.
Soft.
So she said, I got smart. I started, before you would go to bed, I'd take a bowl of Wheaties, put it in the refrigerator, put some sugar on it, and you liked it more with cream than you did with milk. So she said,
she fattened you up.
Be ready. So finally, she said, then I even got smarter. I just fed you before I put you to bed.
So you didn't wake
up. The first time you ate the Wheaties, you slept for like till 10 o'clock the next morning. And then it was kind of like you didn't want to go to sleep because you wanted to eat. So she said, I just figured I'll just feed you before you go to bed. So now, as you know, over the years, I've gotten many bowls, giant bowls of Wheaties, says Wheaties on it, or Sarge's Wheaties, or
yes, you have your own personal Wheaties bowls.
Right. Dad's cereal bowl,
Yep. And they're like this big.
They're huge.
They're huge. They're ginormous. They're like popcorn bowls.
Right.
And you use it for your Wheaties. Right.
And I actually use them. Because I almost ate a whole box of Wheaties.
I'm surprised you don't use like a wooden spoon.
I should. I have an idea for a commercial using a wooden spoon, but
I used to get chased with the wooden spoon.
Yeah. So that's where it kind of all started, and then my mother, started taking me to get pictures taken of myself when I was like, I don't even know how old I was.
Yes.
And so she would hold my back up like that, and as soon as the photographer said go, she'd go like that and go right back. It was snap, snap, because I would fall
over because you were so big.
I had a little punch. I had a belly started already, so I had that wrestling belly already. So eventually, I started kind of, being a little more athletic, and then of course the time came where we moved off the farm and we went to Minneapolis and had a 1-bedroom apartment at a woman's house named Mrs. Johnson. And she lived upstairs and we lived downstairs. And every night, my sister and I would go to sleep in my mom and dad's bed. And for some reason, I don't know how it happened, we always woke up on the fold-out couch in the living room.
I wonder how that happened.
Never could figure that out. So finally, I started thinking, I got to figure this out. So they put us to bed, and I pretended that I went to sleep. Mm-hmm. So I laid there for a long time, and finally I heard some people coming. And so I snuck out and out of the bedroom, and I was crawling on my hands and knees. I always remembered I got underneath this table, and I see my uncle Lauren, and I see my uncle Freddie, and my dad, and one other neighbor guy, and they're watching wrestling. I didn't know what it was. And they're screaming at the TV, and my uncle said, Rudy, that referee's blind. What's wrong with that guy? And they really were into the wrestling, And so every chance I got, this was a Saturday night, about 7 o'clock, it was live on television. I would pretend to be asleep on Saturday nights. Then I would crawl out to the table where I would watch it. And I was probably maybe about 3 years old. I don't know if I was much older than that. And finally, I got caught because my mother might have been away for the first time. Second time, she probably, was doing some things with maybe my aunts that came along with my uncles. Because everybody played cards back then, different card games.
Playing hearts.
That's what we did. That's what they did. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden, she wanted to check on something, and she came out screaming, Rudy, Bobby's missing. And he went, what? So they're all looking around for me, and they're like panicked because I disappeared. They thought I was kidnapped or got up and walked out of the house or something. And finally, I was under the table. So I came crawling on. I said, I'm here. And they were so thankful that I wasn't missing. That I didn't get spanked or anything.
You didn't get in trouble.
I didn't get in any trouble because they were so happy. But don't you do that ever again? And so that's when they didn't put me to sleep. They just said, just hang out with your dad and your uncles and watch wrestling. So that's how I started watching wrestling and got into it. They hooked me. I was a wrestling fan. And that's where it all kind of started.
Nice. One of my favorite stories that you used to tell me all the time growing up was not really, it wasn't a favorite story because it was like a good story. It was a favorite story because it was so exciting.
Yeah.
And that was when you were in the plane.
When I was where?
In a plane.
Oh, yeah.
And do you know which story I'm talking about? You had to wrap the...
There was a lot of them.
Yeah. But the wings, you thought they were going to snap off?
Well, we were going from Charlotte, North Carolina to Roanoke, Virginia in a 8-passenger Sky King, I think it was called. Anyway, it didn't matter what the plane was called, but we started getting into some turbulence. And a lot of times we played cards and things, but this time I said, I'm not playing any cards. So I had my back to the pilot. And Roddy Piper was next to me on my left. And a couple of guys in front of me. Then way in the back was Jimmy Boogie Woogie Valiant and Wahoo McDaniels and a couple other guys. So we started bouncing around. So I took the seatbelt access. I pulled it so tight and I put it around my wrist just like a buck and bronco because we were like boom, bang, boom, bang, boom. And it was pretty scary. And then all of a sudden, bam, we went down. They say like 500 feet. You drop just out of nowhere and then you come right back up. And it really jarred us all. And I thought we were going to die. I didn't think I was going to make it through that because it wasn't like it stopped. It kept on going. And then it happened again, though maybe a minute later it happened again. So I finally, I look over at Roddy Piper and he's kind of slumped over, like not looking good. This kind of a grayish look on his face. I reached over and I shook him. You all right? How Roddy? Yeah, I'm okay. And I know he was probably as scared as everybody else was.
Right. Trying not to get sick, that would make me sick.
Yeah. So then I looked over and finally we were starting to go into our landing. Kind of finally subsided. And I looked over my couple guys in front of me over their shoulders, and there was Wahoo McDaniels, and he's like looking for one of his boots. He had wore cowboy boots, and he couldn't find his boot. He says, "Anybody see my boot? Anybody see my boot?" And I looked down, and here it was next to me. It flew right off of
his foot.
His foot. This cowboy boot flew right off his foot, and it probably slammed into the door right next to me to the pilot. And I never even saw it because I was probably had my eyes closed. I don't know. And then right next to him is Jimmy Valiant, and he's got a cup in his hand, and he's going, I'm bleeding. And he's got this warm substance running down his face. I said, no, Jimmy, it's your spit cup. It flew up in the air and it landed on his head. And it was all that spit was coming down his face. He thought it was blood. And so there was a couple of instances. So finally we landed and I looked over at Roddy and he didn't have a seatbelt on. So whatever he did, he flew up and down and all over the place. So when we get off the plane, he was like groggy. He was disoriented. And I said, Rod, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. So we walked in and we got in and we're telling everybody about what happened. And I went to the promoter of that show and I said, he's not wrestling tonight. He doesn't even know where he's at.
You don't know his name right now.
So Roddy said, I'm okay. It was a tough son of a gun, but I don't care how tough you are when you're in that situation. So anyway, We did a Roddy Piper's Pit that night. We didn't let it wrestle. So of course, we have to get back in the plane and fly back to Charlotte that night. But the weather, subsided and was okay. So, as we go the weeks and months later, Roddy and I travel a lot together. And anytime we'd stop or do something, he'd always say, "Uncle Bob, can you give me a adjustment?" Because we were our own chiropractors, our own doctors, and I stitched up several guys with needles and thread, so they didn't have to go to the hospital or spend money. We didn't have the money yet, and we didn't have doctors or anything like that.
Wasn't like it is now.
No, not like it is now. And so we would adjust each other. And so about a year goes by, and Hot Rod calls me up, Uncle Bob, and he's like happy. He goes, "Guess what? What? I found out why my neck is so sore." And I said, "Why?" He said, "It's broke." And I said, "What?" "I've been adjusting your neck.
Your broken neck?
I'm adjusting a broken neck."
That's why you're not supposed to be your own chiropractor, Dad.
Lucky you're not dead. I mean,
God.
I could have ended his life.
Yeah, could have paralyzed him.
But he would scream and be satisfied. It satisfied him when he would get that adjustment, because
it releases endorphins when you do that.
The pain for a little while for him.
Right.
But all those months, almost a year before he found out he had a broken freaking neck. I mean, Kurt Angle won a gold medal with
broken neck.
A broken freaking neck, they say. But Hot Rod, he wrestled a year with a broken neck. Didn't even know it. And I'm adjusting it. I didn't know it. That kind of gives you the chills. But
not plane crash, the plane turbulence.
One tough son of a gun, I'll tell you that. Yeah. I don't think there was anybody tougher pound for pound than Roddy Piper, not only physically but mentally. But he was the most talented guy. He could play guitar, he could play a piano, he played a harmonica, he could play a trumpet, and he played the bagpipes. He was so talented. Sometimes we get to somewhere and there'd be a piano and in an arena somewhere on a stage, and he'd start playing all these songs.
Wow.
Gee, how did you learn that? He just got on the piano. He
had an ear for music.
He was pretty much, he left home when he was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
Had a fight with his dad and left. And was on his own from that point. So he had to fight for a lot that he got, for everything he got. So he learned the hard knocks of becoming a professional wrestler. Not that everybody has to go through that, but he did. And I always know that whenever there was a homeless person on a corner or wherever it was, he'd stop the car or he'd get out of a bus or any type of transportation we would have, and he'd take some money out of his pocket and put it in their dish, because that was his life at one time.
Oh, wow.
He was one of those people.
He was homeless at one time?
Yeah. So,
I didn't know that.
God rest his soul. Rest in peace, Hot Rod.
Would you say that he was one of your best friends in the business?
Yes.
What about one of your best friends outside the business?
Yeah, outside the business also.
Yeah.
I could maybe count 5 on my one hand that were my friends inside and outside the ring. Mm-hmm. Don Grenoble being one.
Mm-hmm. Uncle Don.
Lord Alfred Hayes was another. Pat Patterson.
Pat.
And of course his friend Louis Tendero.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't in the business, but he helped a lot of people in the business with his psychology of the business, do the business. But yeah, and Cosgrove was a good friend. We didn't have like a phone type of friendship, more or less, when we'd see each other. Right. Because we went through some pretty rough battles. Mm-hmm. We drew a lot of money and made a lot of money for a lot of promoters. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of your Medal of Honor, your badge that you wear, whenever you look back at the history books of the cities and towns and what they did for the night, what kind of money they made, and you'd see an SO next to your match. That meant sellout. You sold it out, and that was your Medal of Honor, your badge, because we sure didn't do it for the money back then. I mean, we weren't making that much money,
right?
Until Vince McMahon Senior brought me into New York. That's when I started making the money, and it became a business instead of just a sport.
Mm-hmm.